David Stern, the commissioner of the NBA, weighed in on this issue, and here's what he had to say. He said that we would love to add a year, meaning that players would have to wait 2 before they come in. But that's not something that the Players Association has been willing to agree to. Our rule is that they won't be eligible for the draft until they're 19. This is not a social program. This is a business rule for us. The NFL has a rule which requires 3 years of college. Who are you with here, Stern or Calipari? Stephen A?
Skip, I need your help here because, in all seriousness, I must acknowledge that I'm torn. On one hand, I watched the college game. I was in New Orleans on Monday night for the national championship game, and although Kentucky was just sensational, you watch college basketball throughout this year, and clearly the talent level has eroded to some degree. There is no doubt about that, that college basketball just seems to be missing something. It's not god-awful or anything like that, but there's something that seems to be missing. And what I was explaining to somebody the other night was that when you have individuals like, let's say, for example, a Dwight Howard that went straight from high school, the Kobe's of the world, the Jermaine O'Neals, the Kevin Garnett's, others.
LeBron.
If they had gone to college, it's not like they would be, and LeBron, it's not like they would be on the same team. They would usually be the star of a particular program, and they ultimately would face against one another, and we would look so forward to that we would think that college basketball is on an elevated level. Clearly, because that hasn't happened, that's not the case, and the game has suffered. Not to mention the fact that, again, you have a situation, if you have the rule where you have to wait 2 years. Let's say, for example, you had to wait 2 years that you were out of high school and not until you were the age of 19. If you had to wait 2 years, because of so much stuff that comes with being a professional athlete, the money, the allure, the temptations, the responsibilities from a societal perspective, and how that could ultimately affect the business model if you don't conduct yourself right. I understand those who want that. However, I hear what John Calipari is saying, and then that moves me because it harkens me back to a time where I'm in my community in Hollis, Queens, New York, and we're talking about these things. And relatives in the Bronx, and in Brooklyn and what have you, and you're struggling with poverty, deprivation, things of that nature, and you're starving for that opportunity that will you'll be blessed with, so you can get an opportunity to move beyond all of that. And you're saying to yourself, why should these kids be held back? Why should they be delayed? You can sit there and go into the military to fight for your country at age 18, but you can't go out here and make an honest buck. It does seem to be flagrantly hypocritical, not to mention the fact that when you consider that we're talking about a vast majority of African American athletes, then it raises something to another level. So I'm really torn with it. I see both sides of the argument, but I must confess to you that when I hear John Calipari say what he says, it moves me in a different kind of way, because it gets my antenna raised and it gets my ire steamed up, because I'm saying, wait a minute, why are we considering holding dudes back from making an honest living when we don't do that in tennis? We don't do it in golf. We don't do it when it comes to serving our country. We don't do it when it comes to Wall Street or anybody else, but somehow, some way, we're talking about this with young and, dare I say, African-American kids.
Well said. Let me help you as best I can.
Sure.
We kid sometimes about how something is unconscionable, unconstitutional, asinine 10 and 11. Well, this is literally, to me, unconstitutional. I think if a young man, black or white, green or yellow, wants to come straight out of high school at any age, after his junior year of high school, and go straight into the NBA and risk making it in professional basketball, he should be allowed that right, because this is America. Now, again, there's a downside. He could fail miserably, but there's no law that I know of that you can't go back to school if you feel like it and get your education. So in the case of Coach Cal, what would be his worst nightmare, I could argue, is if we went back to the old LeBron Kobe, go straight from high school to the pros, because then he wouldn't get the Anthony Davis. He wouldn't get the Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. He'd have to play on a more level playing court with everyone else. And Stephen A., I don't think it would hurt college basketball, because it would be uniformly mediocre. So it's always the same in college. The competition is still very equal in college basketball. It could make it even more competitive without the best players in the country who would go straight to pro basketball. So not only do I not want the plus 2 years, I want it to go back to the way it used to be. You can go whenever you want to try pro basketball.
The only thing I would say to that is I do want you to have, it needs to be mandatory that you have to have a high school education before.
Okay.
I mean, you don't need to be able to
That's
drop
fine.
out of high school going pro. I don't like that.
Fair enough.